My name is Hai Nguyen. I'm co-founder of Affluence, the company behind Protomatrix. Today's webinar is on our advanced features, in particular around reports and workload management. And so our goals for today, a quick overview of Protomatrix, how to use Gantt charts, how to use a reporting system, how to use workload management, and how to use global reports, and finally, how to use the master list and the search view to generate whatever it is that you need to generate. One of the things I do want to emphasize is that this is not intended to be an introduction to Protomatrix. I do assume that you have a pretty basic understanding of at least what Protomatrix can do, although I will give you a quick overview. I want to remind you that there are other webinars that's more basic, just in case you do need those. So let's start with why do you even prioritize? There's three reasons customers come to Protomatrix. One, to be better at keeping track on the status of work across many different areas of responsibilities. Second, to create alignment across team members so that everyone knows what's important. And then thirdly, to take back control of emails and meetings. And then why do you want to use some of our advanced features? First of all, you can get even better visibility across people and time. Those are two very, very different dimensions. And I think it's extremely important to understand what it is you need to work on today, tomorrow, and then in the coming months and years. And then who is it that's supposed to be responsible for it? And who is it that's responsible for doing the work, and what's their workload like? And then secondly, to ensure that the right things are done across not just your own project or your own task, but perhaps across your entire team and organization. So in my other webinars, one of the things I emphasize is how you can use 20% of the features in Protomatrix to get 80% of the value. In today's webinar, it's around using some of the more advanced capabilities in Protomatrix to get you to that 99% of the value out of Protomatrix. So hopefully this will give you some insights on what are some of the things that you can achieve with Protomatrix. So even if you don't use these features today, I think you'll come out realizing that there's so much more to Protomatrix, and that as you use Protomatrix more and more, all these views and data becomes available for you to review afterwards. So even if you're not able to take advantage of everything today, that's all right. So Protomatrix is a comprehensive email, priority, and project management software. So what that means is that we actually help across all the different levels in which you can use our system to prioritize your tasks and projects. At the individual level, Protomatrix helps you prioritize your most important task, right? That's the basic assumption and the most valuable use case of Protomatrix, to ensure that you as an individual are able to understand exactly what you need to work on. But what happens is that if you as an individual prioritize your task and you're able to communicate that to your team, then it actually helps the entire team stay aligned. So being able to understand what everyone's priorities are within your team in an effective and efficient way is so valuable to ensure that you're all going in the right direction. And then lastly, Protomatrix helps at the organizational level create a single source of truth to become more efficient and more effective as a whole group. And the reason it works is because Protomatrix keep tracks of things across time and across projects. So what that means is if you have a new employee, they're able to understand exactly the decisions made previously in terms of prioritization, in terms of due dates, and so forth. And then similarly, what happens is that when someone leaves your organization, you can actually reassign those priorities to somebody else. And so that knowledge is actually saved and can be transferred. And that is so valuable as a way to preserve organizational knowledge. So what makes Protomatrix better than all the other solutions out there? It's the only solution that's Microsoft 365 certified across our Teams app, Outlook app, and web app. So that's actually a very unique capability. The second is that we're deeply integrated into the Microsoft Outlook and Copilot ecosystem. Now, you don't need to be a Microsoft user to use Protomatrix. We work completely independent of that. But if you do use, if you are a Microsoft Azure user or a Microsoft Office user, we're almost a no-brainer because we're so deeply integrated into your existing work. Protomatrix focuses on prioritization. That's the number one thing. And I want to emphasize that over and over again. So if you use Protomatrix for prioritization, you're on the right track. If you don't use it for prioritization, make sure you use it for prioritization. Protometrics also provide what I call people-centric collaboration. So what that means is that, we have to look at all the things that we have to do from so many different lenses, right? That's the reality, is that when you have a task, you have to think about, okay, who's responsible? When is it due? What is what is its priorities compared to everything else? And then who are the people affected by these tasks? And so it's not so straightforward just to write things down on a list. And that's where Protometrics really shines, because it provides that clear visibility. Party Matrix is also available as a standard SaaS solution, which is, of course, the most standard solution here. And then we also have a HIPAA compliance for healthcare and life sciences, an Azure government cloud for state and local government, and then managed private Azure deployments. So if you're an organization required the enterprise version of Party Matrix, reach out to us and we'd be happy to talk you through that. And then lastly, some of the AI features focus on helping you tackle specific challenges. Now, I won't be walking you through the AI features today. That's for some of the other webinars. But if you have questions around that, reach out to us. So I do want to do a quick overview on the fundamentals behind Protometrics, because it is so important. There's a famous quote attributed to former President Eisenhower: "What is important is seldom urgent, and what is urgent is seldom important." Now, what I really like about this quote is it helps us understand that things aren't siloed, right? You don't have a list of things to work on and then you should start at the top or the bottom. Instead, you should look at them from the dimensions of importance and urgency. So what are the things that's important and urgent? What are the things that's important but not urgent? What are the things that's urgent but not important? And then what are the things that's not important and not urgent? Now, what happens for all of us is that instead of working from the dimensions of importance, we tend to work from the dimensions of urgency. So guess what? That last email in is the first email you respond to, right? And I'm guilty of this too. When I start my day and I check my emails, guess what? I look at the first email right at the very top of the list, and that's the last email that came in. Is it the most important? Probably not, but it's the last one in. And then similarly, if you get a chat message, if you're using Microsoft Teams or Slack or some communication form, and someone sends you a message, guess what? It's that last message that you look at first. And then what happens too is that the people who ping you, who send you so many emails, so many follow-ups and so forth, they're constantly bombarding you. Those are the ones that you end up seeing again and again, even when they're not important. And so that is why we have to be cognizant of the dimensions of importance and urgency. And Protometrics, what Protometrics does is helps you surface that up in a visual manner. So there's something called the Eisenhower matrix, and it's a very simple yet powerful time management framework. And what happens is, instead of actually having a task list, we categorize all our tasks into 4 quadrants. And so what that allows us to do is helps us prioritize our tasks and make the most out of our time. So Party Matrix is actually loosely based on that Eisenhower matrix. And so what we've done is we built an application around the 4 quadrants. And what happens is, in quadrant 1, you have the things that are due now, right? That's the equivalent of the important and urgent. And then in the plan quadrants, those are the things that are important, but they're not due yet. And so that's where you actually need to be planning for and starting thinking about how you tackle those when you do have the bandwidth and resources. And then the delegate are the things that are actually not urgent, not important rather, but perhaps urgent, but they do need to be done. And then lastly, the inbox, which is your catch-all. Now, one thing that's actually not obvious at all, well, actually there's several things that's not obvious. The first is that if you have all your tasks in the do now quadrant, right? If everything is important, then nothing is important. So if you have everything in quadrant 1, you're doing it wrong. That's the most basic way to say it. So I'm sure you've worked with managers who every time they come to you, they're like, hey, we got to do this now, right? And then 15 minutes later, hey, we got to do this now. And what happens is that when you do something like that, it's just urgency taking over everything. And so if everything's important, then nothing is. Just keep that in mind. The second thing is that the plan for quadrant is actually your most important. And I learned this, in my conversation with the customer that I remember being at a conference where the customer comes to me and say, wait a minute, if I have everything in quadrant 1 and that's all I'm working on, then I'm constantly firefighting. Shouldn't I have nothing in quadrant 1 and everything in quadrant 2? And it is such a powerful insight, because when you think about it, if you're just waiting until everything is urgent, right? All your important stuff are urgent. That means you didn't properly plan. And so instead, if you look at the bigger picture and as you use Pretty Matrix, one of my recommendations is the following. One, have no more than 25% of the tasks in quadrant one. That means you're firefighting a little bit, but reality is, those are the things you should be working on. And then 25% of the things in quadrant two, these are the things you truly should be investing resources to ensure that you work on those. And then the delegate is actually kind of interesting. So that's the Eisenhower matrix adoption. But my recommendation for the delegate quadrants is that use it for tracking things that you don't necessarily have to work on. And so you can actually adapt that to resources, as in tracking your files, your documents, etc., or things that you can actually send to somebody else. When you use Party Matrix in a team environment, you can delegate tasks from any of these quadrants. There's no specific quadrant tailored toward delegation. So I wanted you to keep that in mind. And then finally, you shouldn't have anything that's not important and not urgent. Instead, quadrant four should really be about your catch-all, right? Essentially, when you have an idea, it goes in here. From there, you decide where does it fit, quadrant one, two, or does it sit in quadrant four for a while and you let it brew before you actually realize where it should go. So the four quadrant Eisenhower matrix creates alignment because it forces you to prioritize from the beginning. So you see how when you use Pretty Matrix, you don't put things in the list, you put things within the quadrants, right? And that's the hard part. And I'm not going to say that, it's easy to use Pretty Matrix, but it's really around making sure that you're actively thinking about it. Because if you don't prioritize, guess what? You're not going to work on the right things, and then someone else will prioritize for you. And the way they prioritize for you is they will go and keep on sending you messages over and over again, and then those urgent tasks will take over your entire day. And before you know it, you've worked on a bunch of things, and it got you nowhere. And so success from using Pretty Matrix also isn't about finding out what everyone agrees on. It's discovering disagreement on what should be a priority when it isn't. And so one of the best practices I want to recommend to you, all of you here today, and everyone who's listening to this afterwards, is the following. Always create a project for your priorities and then ask all your coworkers to do the same thing and then compare notes. That's it. Just go around the office, compare your notes, and show your manager your priority matrix, show your direct reports your priority matrix, ask to see their priority matrix, and look for that alignment. And here's the thing. If you see alignment everywhere, that's great, but actually that's not that valuable because everyone knows exactly what you're supposed to work on already. The valuable part around using Pretty Matrix is surfacing the disagreements that you didn't realize you had. And that's where the magic happens. And so I love it when you are able to share your Pretty Matrix to somebody and then they look at it and then suddenly a whole conversation takes place because of all the disagreements that you have. And similarly, it's not just about you and another coworker, it's you and your clients, it's you and your customers, it's you and your family, right? And so you can think how Party Matrix forces everyone to be on the same page, and putting it down into Party Matrix makes it so explicit. So I can't emphasize that enough that, if you use Party Matrix for nothing more, think of it as a communication tool. And so that is also why I recommend projecting Party Matrix onto the big screen in your team meetings. Okay, I do want to emphasize that this webinar and other webinars are recorded and posted on our website, affluence.com/webinars. So be sure to check out those other webinars if you need to. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and walk you through the product and show you these advanced features that we talked about. Okay, so here I have my Party Matrix shared with you, my Party Matrix for the web shared with you here. And again, a very basic overview. On the left-hand side, you have a list of projects. Within the project, you have the quadrant, and then you have the project details. And then when you select the task, then you have the item details, right? If you need a basic introduction to this, make sure you check out the introductory webinar. So now let's talk about the bigger picture when you look at something like this. So as you can see in this particular project, when I've selected it, on the right-hand side here, it shows members. So these are other people who are on this project with me. So instead of just having a priority matrix for myself, I have a priority matrix that's shared with other coworkers. Now here's the good part about it. My coworkers will have the same visibility as me. And then not only that, they can check their priority matrix at any point in time. And that's the valuable part, because you don't have to have a meeting just to get to the same page. Instead, anyone can check their priority matrix, their shared projects at their convenience and know what everyone else is working on. So that's how the project permission works, that full visibility. As you can tell, I might have dozens of projects here. In my actual work account, I have more than 300 projects. And within each of those projects, some of them are personal, but some of them are shared with coworkers and so forth. So what that means is that don't be afraid to create projects, as long as each of those projects represent different priorities for different initiative or different kind of work that you have. Now, within the quadrant itself, in this particular case, I have a lot of tasks that's delegated to different people. So for example, every task I have here, there's a little avatar next to that. So that represents the owner. So you can actually go and upload your picture, for example, so then it'll be easier to see. Otherwise, it uses their initial. And so when I look at something like this, I can see, okay, these are Tyler's priorities, these are my priorities, these are Remy's priorities, and so forth. So at the very top of Priority Matrix here, there's other views. And so that's how we're going to get into the Gantt chart aspect of it. So as you can see, within each of these tasks, we have the various due dates and so forth. So if I change view to the list view, I can actually see all the tasks in the list form, but I can actually sort by when they were modified or when they're due. And then I have the calendar view, which shows me the task, but with all the tasks with due dates, and actually I can drag and drop them as needed. But the Gantt chart is where I can actually see the task across much larger time scale. So let me explain why you want to use these different views in Priority Matrix. The quadrant view is very good for seeing priorities because they split things up into the 4 quadrants. The list view is very good to see the larger picture and be able to see the tasks that are modified and then the tasks that are overdue. The calendar is very good for seeing tasks that are due within this particular week or this particular month. But the Gantt chart view is very good for seeing things that are due across much longer time scale. So when you use Priority Matrix, all you have to do is switch between those views. All the data is the same. It's just visualization in a way that helps you determine what it is that you need to work on. And one of the valuable thing about the Gantt chart in particular is it's very good for putting into your PowerPoint, right? So if you're a project manager, sometimes what you have to do is you have to go and generate a little Gantt chart that shows, by the way, these are the tasks that we have. This is what it looks like moving forward. And when you go to the Gantt chart, you can actually show people, by the way, we're on track here or we're behind schedule and so forth. One of the things that you can do in the Gantt chart too is actually be able to create dependencies. And that's a big difference between seeing tasks in a linear form or in the matrix form. And so let me show you how that works. So for example, let's say here I have a task called train sales team. Okay, and so now in the resources section, I can actually link this task to another task. So I'm going to click on link existing item. And so one of those things might be hire sales team right here. But what I'm going to say is that I'm going to say that this task, train sales team, is actually blocked by the hire sales team. So in order to train the sales team, you have to hire them first. And so what happens is that I can actually build these dependencies. So you can see how Priority Matrix here actually goes and create this link. And so actually this got written backwards. And so, you're hiring the sales team after you train. So obviously this shows that, hey, this is not going to work, right? And so you can actually rearrange the task and so forth to ensure that they flow in the proper manner. So the dependencies is a visualization that says this task is blocking this other task, or this task is blocked by this other task, or this task is caused by, or this task causes. And so the difference between blocks and causes is actually the same when it comes to visualization. It's just a way for you to write it down in Priority Matrix, so then you know that a particular task is blocked by or causes by. So that's just a nomenclature more than anything else. And so in Protomatrix, you can actually link a lot of other things as well. But when you link existing tasks together, that's how they show up on the Gantt charts. One of the things that you can do too is actually down here at the very bottom, you can actually mention task. Or at the very top here, you can actually create linked task. And so this is a way for you to create, you're on a particular task and you need to create another task and you want them to all be synchronized together or at least linked together. That's what you do. You create these linked tasks, again, either by linking them just for a standard dependency or to actually say that this task depends on that other task. Okay, so that's how a Gantt chart works within each particular project. But let's go on to the next view, which is let's talk about reports. So what happens is as you use Protomatrix more and more, one of the things you'll realize is that you want better visibility on the work that's been done and the work that's to be done. And so when I talk about views in Protomatrix, it's all around displaying information that's relevant to you. So at the top here again, I can actually click on the last view, which is called the reports view. So the reports view is a way for you to see all the changes and all the tasks that's relevant within this particular project. And so the structure is the following. At the top here, you can actually decide how to sum the tasks. So for example, you can just say, show me based on the number of tasks that each person has, or the number of effort hours that each person is responsible for. And then also, I can actually generate these reports based on all quadrants. Or if you're using Protomatrix correctly, then you can actually say, you know what, show me only the first 3 quadrants, right? The reason why we have that explicitly is because then you can ignore that inbox, because that inbox is supposed to be the catch-all. The quadrant 4 is supposed to be the catch-all. So therefore, you don't want to go and actually show any report for the items in that particular set of quadrants. And then lastly, from a date standpoint, it defaults to last month every time, but you can actually go to here and show all time. And now what you have is you have a report that shows you everything within this particular project across your entire time scale. This report is generated in real time. It's very valuable as a way to see what things are being worked on. And then down here, we have gold, silver, and bronze, just like the Olympics, right? What happens is gold just means that the person has finished more items, and then silver, and then bronze as a way to just categorize the number of things they're responsible for. And then below that, you can actually rank users by the number of tasks they completed, or completed on time, or deadline, or number of overdue tasks, or the number of created. So it's just, again, visibility depending on whatever it is that you need. And what's nice about this is actually I can see the number of tasks that's been created within this time scale, and then the number of tasks that's completed, number of tasks that still have deadlines that's coming up, and the number of tasks that have deadlines that are overdue. So I can click on each of these and you see how I can actually get to that task really, really easily. So it's a powerful way to drill down. So imagine being able to go to this view and then see what is each person responsible for, what are the things that person has that's on their plate that's overdue. So for example, I'll show you how that works. Let's just say if I click on a person here, you see what it's just done is it actually filters everything, and now it just shows everything that this person's responsible for, the number of tasks they've created, the number of tasks they've completed, and so forth. Very, very powerful way to drill down. So if you're a manager and you have a lot of people working on different things, this view just gives you that full visibility from one central place, and it's real time and it's interactive. Okay. And as you scroll down a little bit more, there's actually a lot of other ways to look at this information. You can actually see all the tasks that are overdue. You can see all the tasks. I can click on that. Now I see the overdue task. And then I can also see these are finished items. So in this case, in this particular project, there's no finished items. But then once you see when there are finished items, you'll see where people are spending their time. So imagine this. You have a project that tracks all your priorities. And then what you see is that people are working on things that's in quadrant 3, the low priority stuff, instead of quadrant 1. That's will be very obvious when you look at the reports view. So again, if you're a manager, you want to know that your team members are actually working on the things in the right quadrants. And likewise, this report view is available just for you as an individual as well. So you can track your own priorities, right? And then you can see, am I working on the right things? Am I working on the things that's quadrant 1, or am I working on the things that's quadrant 2? Now, it could be that you are, you realize that something is wrong in one quadrant versus another, but the whole point of this is giving you the visibility that you need to know what it is that you need to work on. Down here, there's something called tags. And so every action item in Protomatrix actually has tags. So over here on the right-hand side, when I have a task selected under tags, here it says AI. The reason it says AI is because this project was generated using our AI project generator. And then it tags sales because this is a sales-related project, sales-related task. And so you can actually group tasks together so you can see what tasks are people working on, what are the things that open. And how you tag a task, you simply click on the tag here, or you can actually just do a hashtag in the chat. So for example, I do a hashtag and I say training. And so now what I've just done is I've created a whole new tag for this particular task. And now you see how the report system already updated it. And now I can find all the tasks related to training. A task might have multiple tags. And so what that means is that you can actually just tag as many items as you want. The reports view gives you that full visibility. Let me give you some examples on where this might be very valuable. Imagine if you were in customer support, and what happens is that customers will send you tickets around issues that they face, right? And so what happens is you might go and you might tag a particular task as a product bug related to the iPhone or something like that. And so you could say bug iPhone as 2 separate tags, or you can say bug desktop as another tag, or you can say complaints, or you can say sales or cancellation, etc. When you go to the reports view, guess what? All of those tags will show up and you can see what's the biggest problem. Is the biggest problem cancellation, or is the biggest problem bugs, or is the biggest opportunity here is people sending very positive feedback. So you can see how tags can be very useful for that purpose. And then next to tags are icons. So every task also has a place for you to set one icon. And so up here, I can actually click on change icon. And so you can see how I can click on this and change to various icons. One of the things I've recommended in the past is actually using red, yellow, and green. The reason is they're very visual and you can see, okay, these tasks are on schedule or behind schedule or at risk. And so when you choose those different colors, then actually they'll show up right here and then you can see what are the items that's at risk, etc. Again, I can click on these right here and then drill down to those specific tasks. This is such a valuable way to find information in real time, given all the data that you have. As I scroll down further, I can actually see tasks, the cadence of which things are happening. So in this particular project, I don't have any specific tasks that were created on any specific days, but you can actually group this by different views. And now you can see this quarter, how many tasks are new, how many tasks are completed. And so again, if you're in customer service, for example, and you're tracking all the tasks that you have, then you can see, okay, you know what? We have a lot of new issues that's coming in, but not as many issues that's getting completed. Or if you're in sales, you might have, these are new leads that we have, and then these are the leads that are still open, and then these are the leads that's been completed. And again, you can look at that cadence over the course of months or quarters or days or weeks. Down here further, you actually have the same view, but on a calendar format. So what that allows you to see is when activities are happening. So what's really neat about this is that you might see visibility across your data that you weren't aware of before on a timeline level. So let me give an example. Let's just say if you have if you're in sales again and you have different leads that's coming in and it's getting created, and you see a lot more leads in May or June, and then not many in July and August, this view would show you that because it'll show you the number of items that's created at each of those point in time. And what happens, the darker the color, the more there are at that moment in time. And then down here, you can also see what the due dates are. Again, the darker the colors means that there's more items that's due on that day. So this is the equivalent view. The view for this lets you see when are you very busy. So let me give you an example. let's just say if you're in this particular project, you're a project manager, you have a lot of tasks that's due next week, right? What happens is when you're in this view, you can see that, okay, next week looks really, really overloaded. And today, we're not, but we better be preparing for the coming weeks. And then you can see when you're lightest in terms of workload. So this is based on deadline. This is based on creation. And then as you go down further, you can actually look at user focus. So now what happens is that you can actually have visibility across all the different users within your project. And then down below that, you have what's called delegation. And so this is a way for you to visualize who's delegating tasks to whom. So, for example, if you're the manager, likely tasks from you flow to everybody else. And then if you're a direct report, you can see what are the tasks that's flowing to you. And what's neat about this is that you can actually click on each of these and you can see where the flow is coming from. You see that? And so that gives me very, very good visibility on who's creating tasks, who's delegating to whom. Now, let me give you an example why you want to see this. It's just a way to ensure that your employees are getting delegation from the right people. So imagine if you're trying to make sure, if you're a manager and you're trying to make sure that your employees is not overloaded by work from somebody else, this view gives you that visibility. So you can also change this to see the number of items that's open, completed, etc. So that's the report view. So in a nutshell, the reports view is all about taking the data that you have in Protomatrix and visualizing it in real time. How you use it really depends on your specific use case. And so, there's no one best way to use Protomatrix, but what I really like about this view is it shows you the the kind of things that are happening, right? So again, using item tags or using icons or just ensuring that people are working on the right quadrants. And so when you open the reports view, even if you don't scroll further down, just go into this view right here, gives you that visibility that you can't get anywhere else. And then be able to click on each person to see what are the things they're focusing on is so valuable as well. Okay, so what I've shown you so far is the Gantt charts and the reports view as different places for you to get visibility on the work that people are working on across time, and then in this case, across people. Let me show you a couple of other views. The next thing is what's called reports. And so if you click on reports here, you can actually go to what's called general reports. And the general reports is actually a summary of everything that you have across all your projects. So when you go to this report, it's not interactive in real time. Instead, it actually provides you what's called a daily report on the task that you've worked on. So for example, here I click on the weekly reports and it shows me all the things that I worked on and all the things that are relevant to me regardless of what project it is, right? So it's pretty good visibility on just the activity that I'm working on. And then up here, you can actually click on schedule and you can actually change the schedule when you get those reports. And so when you use Protomatrix, you can actually get this visibility for weekly items, last 7 days, daily updates, monthly updates, and then quarterly updates as well. So all of these provide different types of visibility depending on what it is that you need. The quarterly one is actually really good for your performance review, right? If you have to do performance reports every quarter, that's a very good place to start. Or if you just want to make sure you're working on the right things every week, that's what the 7 days is for. And then when you go to the reports view again, there's also what's called the workload management. When you go to workload management, this shows you what people's workloads are like. So this actually shows you all the tasks of all the people that's in your account. And so let me give you an example. Let's say if you're a manager and you have 5 or 10 employees under your direct purview. So when you go to here, you can actually see, okay, these are my employees. What are the things I have due every single day of this week? It's a great place to see if people are overloaded. Clearly, when I look at something like this, you can see how this person right here is just all red. So they have the most items across the entire week. And actually I can scroll through it and I can see, okay, you know what, how does next week look? So if you were in need to delegate a task, maybe you shouldn't delegate to this person, right? Maybe you should delegate to another person. And then what's neat about this is that I can actually click on the week, the day itself, and actually see all the tasks, and then I can choose that task and reassign to another person. And so you can see how I can actually reshuffle the workload directly from here. I don't have to open all the projects, look through the tasks, count them, etc. I can actually do it all from the workload management view. So it's a very, very simple place for you to see everything that people are working on. And again, to ensure that you have the right people in the right task. And so make sure that, distribute the workload properly. But here's the thing, this is based on the number of items. I can actually go to here and change based on effort. And so now check this out. When I go to effort, suddenly the information is slightly different. And so you can see that on Monday, even though Eugenia showed fewer items, the amount of effort she has is actually higher. So not all tasks are created equal, right? Some tasks takes 4 hours of work, some tasks take 1, some tasks takes 3 days of work. And so Matrix actually goes and can actually generate based on the effort or scheduled hours. So scheduled hours is essentially if you have due dates across multiple days. And so then we take the effort and we distribute that over those days. So how do you actually set effort? Well, here's a task that I have. And on the right-hand side here, you can click on effort, and then from here, you can actually choose what effort level it is. So you can also down here type set effort to 4 hours. And so one of the things you can do in Matrix is actually use our natural language system to modify the effort for the task itself. And so you can see how when I say set effort to 4 hours, it updated this effort here to half a day. Now, if you want granularity, that's how you do it. Otherwise, if you click on this button, then you pretty much choose from one of those presets. But when you type it, you can actually have a little bit more granularity. Now, 8 hours is considered a day. And so that's why when I say set effort to 4 hours, it says 1/2 day up here. Okay, so that's how you set efforts. Now, if you've seen my other webinars, one of the things I always recommend is that, don't focus on some of these more advanced features unless you have to. So if you're new to Matrix, I don't recommend setting efforts. If you're new to Matrix, I recommend setting due dates and reminders because that helps you focus on the tasks that need to be done. But if you're in need of actually making sure that the right employees are working on the right task and to make sure that the workload is properly distributed, that's what effort is all about. So if you're an accounting firm, right, you might want to track the amount of effort you have for your clients, right, to make sure that your bookkeepers or your accountants are actually working on the right tasks and that they're not overloaded. And one of the things you'll see in this view is immediately, right at the end of the quarter, you have so much more work than other times. And so maybe being able to quickly drill down and take the task here that we can be reassigned to somewhere else is a fantastic way to make sure that everyone's working on the right things. So that's how the workload management report works. Very powerful place to drill down on everything as needed. And as you can see again, how easy it is to reprioritize the task, also reassign the task and changing the due dates. And of course, one of the things you can do here is you can say due in 2 weeks, right? And so Matrix again uses natural language to process that for you. So I recommend strongly that you figure out how to use the natural language aspect of Matrix and then use that to set the due dates and so forth. So if you're really into ensuring that your employees are not overloaded, this is the way to go. Similarly, if you're overloaded, this is also the place for you to show your manager that, hey, by the way, I have a lot on my plate. I have 60 hours worth of work in this 40-hour work week. What's going to give? What do you want me to drop? What do you want me to reprioritize? What do you want me to change the due date for? And so it works in both ways. If you're the manager, your employees are doing good work and make sure that they're not overloaded. And if you're overloaded, you can communicate to your manager that, hey, I can't do this. Help me reprioritize. And so when you think about Matrix and you think about the software, that is why I emphasize setting due dates so much, is because you have importance and urgency. They are two separate dimensions. The important stuff you got to do, but the urgency stuff is how you need to fit it within your schedule, right? If everything's important, but you don't have enough time, what are you going to do? So just keep that in mind. Okay, so that's the reports view here. The one thing I do want to emphasize is that you can actually look at this information in other views as well. So for example, you can go to the one-on-one view and you can actually see all the tasks you have in common with another person across all of your party matrix. So this is what I call people-centric collaboration. So instead of looking at project to task, you look at people to task. And so if you're a manager, you can go here and be able to quickly see everything that a particular employee is working on, um, and then be able to create shared tasks directly from here. Now, let's talk about global views. So the way it worked in Matrix is that, you saw how within a project you can go to the matrix view, the list view, the calendar view. Well, in Matrix, you can also look at that same information, but at the global level. So global level means across all your projects. So on the left side here, I have a couple of different views. For example, I can go to the calendar view. Now this calendar view shows not just the tasks I have in one project, but across all my projects. And then I can click on this very top here and filter and choose only the specific projects that I want to display. So then if you have a lot of projects and you want to know, what are the things that's coming up across, a subset of those projects, that's what this view is for, again, from a calendar view. And so you can go and drill down to this week or this day, this month, and you can click on each of these tasks directly from here. You can modify them, change the due date as needed. Very, very powerful way to look at the bigger picture. Now, some of these tasks here, you can see how it spans across multiple days or multiple weeks. My general recommendation is, you don't have to do that. My general recommendation is just set one due date and then set the reminders to make sure that you work on those tasks. Then it will look a little bit cleaner, especially if you have a lot of tasks. And then down here, one of the things I'm up here actually, one of the things you can do from a filtering standpoint is you can also filter further on that project. So for example, you select 5 projects. Right now you want to see the calendar for those 5 projects, but then you can also see what are the things across those 5 projects that's assigned to a person. So you can see how there's a lot of granularity that you have here, because it's not just about being able to see the calendar across everybody, but you might want to see just the things that's relevant to you. Right. And so when you click on this, that allows you to see the task that's assigned to you. And then you can see how I can actually combine groups together as well. So this is an OR grouping. So what that means is show me all the items that's assigned to me, or this other person. Right. And so that's how it works. And I can actually click and remove as needed. So Matrix gives me all sorts of way to filter that data that I need. And so you can see how that could be very useful. Down here in the search view, this is the view that shows you everything across all of your matrix. So when you go to search view, these are all the tasks that you have, and you can keep scrolling and it'll keep going. So in my work account, I have more than 300 projects and more than 10,000 tasks. And so that's a lot of action items across, years and years of work. But what's neat about this is when I go to the search view, I can actually find all the things to overdue, all the tasks that are starred, right? And so I've mentioned in previous webinars around the importance of starring tasks. You should always star tasks that you're working on, that are actively working on, or things that are important. But here's the thing, if you star everything, then that's not useful either. So you can see how here, when I choose star tasks, I see only maybe a little bit more than a dozen tasks across all of my projects. And so that is a very simple way for me to see my most important work. So my recommendation is you should star at most, 5 to 10 projects, and you should star at most 5 to 10 tasks on a per project basis, probably a little bit less on a per project basis. But what I like to do is I like to star the projects that I work on actively, as in what I care about right now, and I star the tasks that I work on actively. So for example, if you're in sales, you might have, a couple of customers who you're actively trying to close, right? Those are the tasks that you need to star. Or if you're in product engineering, you want to star the features that you're working on right now. So that's where you use the star. And so when you star things, it pops at the top of each of the quadrants as well. So that's a very easy way to see that. And then you can also go to my items. And so these are items that's relevant to me. Now at the very top here, I can click on filters, and now I can actually filter with all sorts of other dimensions as well. So I can actually find projects, I'm sorry, find items that are finished or all items. So sometimes if you know, you might have a lot of tasks that are unfinished, but sometimes you want visibility on all the tasks that are finished and unfinished. So that's when you go to all items here. So the search view here, which I call the master view, is the one place where you can find any pieces of information that you need across some projects. You see down here, I can even exclude projects or include projects instead. And then of course, I also have the tagged here. So for example, earlier we talked about how you can have tagged marketing or bugs or starred, right? So starred means just another tag. I can actually go and find out what are the starred items for a certain person in quadrant one, etc. Then afterwards, I can actually print this information as needed. And so Protomatrix gives me that visibility. Now, here's a thing that I want to mention real quick. Imagine if you have an employee who's working on some really important task and then they leave. They leave your organization and you have no idea what it is that they work on. So guess what? All you have to do is go to filter, change to that person. Okay, so imagine you change to that person. Now you have a visibility on all their tasks. In this case, I left start on, so now I see all their star tasks. And so you can see how actually down here, I'm going to remove myself here. I'm going to remove myself here. So now I just find the star task for that particular person. So now when I go to this master view, I can see everything that they think is actually important. And that gives me very good visibility. And I can click on the task and assign it to somebody new, right? And so you see how I can easily assign this task to another person. And guess what? This new person, when they take over the task, they have the full history. You see how in the chat here, it shows the full history of all the changes, everything that's relevant to this task. And then not only that, they can actually go to the notes section here and see all the notes. And then on the top right here, they can actually go and even see the version control on this task. And so being able to redelegate rather, a task from someone who's left the organization to a whole new person is just immensely valuable. And let's just say if that person left completely and you need to reassign in bulk, well, guess what? Once you're in this view, you can click on this multiple selection, select all, and then click here and then reassign the change owner to change another person. So in one view here, in the master view, you're able to get everything that you need done and be able to reassign all the tasks that's important from one person to another person. And this is valuable if you're trying to onboard a new employee. It's valuable if you're trying to offboard an employee. It's valuable if you need to get visibility that you otherwise didn't get. So you can see how powerful the search view is. It's one of the most powerful views in Protomatrix. It lets you do pretty much everything. And then of course you can use these other filters as well, okay? All right, so that's the search view, and obviously you can see how I can actually show you so many more ways to slice and dice the data. And the last thing I'll show you in the search view here is that you can actually create custom filters. So as you build some of these filters, so for example, maybe one of your filter might be, what are all the start items for a specific employee? Then you can actually click on custom filter here, type in the filter name, and then save it. And what happens now is it saves as a custom filter here. You just click on that and automatically the data shows only things that's relevant to that particular filter. You can create multiple search filters to solve all your specific needs. And then lastly, on the left-hand side here, we're going to go to Gantt chart, but now this is the global Gantt chart, which shows you all the tasks you have in Gantt chart form, but across all your projects. And so you can see how I can zoom out here and I have visibility, not just within a week, but across months and years. And I can see who's assigned to, what kind of task it is. And then not only that, I can click on filter and again, filter by specific task. Or I can actually filter by specific projects as well. So the Gantt chart here, the global Gantt chart, is a fantastic way to have full visibility on the work that you have spanning across months or years, no matter what project it is. So my recommendation when it comes to Protomatrix is don't worry about creating the different projects because all these global views allow you to actually merge all that together. And then down here, you have the feed, and the feed is essentially the global feed that shows you all the changes that's happening across all the Purdy matrix that you have. So when I say that, what that means is that, you're able to see the changes that you have access to, permissions to. As you know, in Purdy matrix, there's actually different permission level, right? So for example, if you have a personal project, those tasks are meant for you. So other teammates can't see it. But if you share that project to them, then they can see that visibility. And so when you go to the feed here, essentially it shows you all the changes across projects that you have access to. And then you're able to click on that as needed. So it's a good place for manager to see the activities that's happening across your entire Protomatrix account. Now, one last thing I want to show you is actually what's called the home view. So the home view is the view where you start your day in Protomatrix. So when you go to this particular view, again, it shows you all the alerts. These are items that require your attention. But when you go to this view here too, you can actually switch to these other views, including the tasks that you visited. The reason why we have this is actually, it's pretty useful because sometimes I actually get a task and I view that task and then it goes away from the alerts view because the alerts is around showing you things you haven't seen. So after you click on it, then it goes away. And then you realize, wait a minute, I need to find that task again. That's when you go to the visited view. And so the visited view is like the history, just like when you're on a browser and you browse to a website, then you leave the website and you realize, wait a minute, I actually need to go back. So that's what the visited view is for. The agenda view is essentially all the tasks that you have, but just showing the things that are due this week. And then finally, the my items, these are all the things that you have to do across all of your Protomatrix. And that shows up right here. So essentially, this is similar to a fine-tuned version of the search view. But one of the neat things about all of these views is that you have the multi-selection, right? When you click on this multi-selection, you can actually select multiple items. And then, for example, I'll show you how that works. Imagine I can select 3 items here, and then I can reassign that item to another person, just like that. And now suddenly those 3 items are gone from my list and it's assigned to somebody else. And so this multi-selection is a really, really neat feature that we've added that I'm a big fan of because it's so useful to be able to move items in bulk, set due dates in bulk, reassign items in bulk. Okay, so that wraps up what I want to show you with respect to the advanced views. I'm going to go back to my presentation here. And I just want to remind all of you what success ought to look like with Protomatrix. I've mentioned many times before, if you've seen the introductory webinar, is that you don't have to use all of these features to be successful in Protomatrix. Again, the most important features are the quadrants, prioritizing the task, the due dates, and the reminders, right? Those are important. Why? It's because it tracks properly the dimensions of importance and urgency. When you put it in the quadrants, you track the importance. When you set the due dates and reminders, it helps you with urgency. The recurring reminders is even more powerful because it pops to the top of your list over and over again. So for me, I always set recurring reminders on my most important task. So the reason I do that is then when I forget to do it or it passes the due dates, my reminders still trigger. And so that ensures that I don't forget it. And so being top of mind is so powerful. And it's a way to trick your brain into remembering the most important tasks that you have. So set recurring reminders and set due dates for all those important tasks. So success on using Protomatrix is really around making sure that you go back into Protomatrix every week, every day, or whatever cadence it is that you need to remind yourself of your goals. So I love using Protomatrix to set my goals and set recurring goals for that reason. And then as you use Protomatrix more, it becomes that one central place to track all your priorities. If you're using 5 different software to track priorities, that's not going to work because you don't have full visibility. Protomatrix can do everything that any other software can and still use the quadrants for that full visibility. And so that gives you a very good motivation to migrate everything into the system. At the team level, the most powerful thing is making sure that everyone's on the same page. And so what that means is that anyone at any point in time can go into their Protomatrix, open the team project and be able to see everyone's priorities. That's powerful. And then I didn't show email prioritization. You should check out the other webinars if you're interested in that. But you can prioritize emails, making sure that people are actually working on the right emails, and then being able to go in and see everyone's priorities asynchronously. Don't have a meeting just to talk about priorities. Just go into Product Matrix and see where the mismatches are. And again, one of the things I want to emphasize is share Product Matrix with the appropriate people. And so even if you don't share the actual software and the matrix itself in a meeting, just projecting Product Matrix onto the big screen or sharing via screen share just creates and facilitates communication. It's so powerful. I can't recommend that enough. With that, I'm done, and I'd be happy to field any questions that's in the chat here. Otherwise, you can also send me questions to hi@affluent.com at any point in time. As I mentioned, the more basic webinars will cover how to use Product Matrix, how to prioritize email, how to create projects, and so forth. Thank you.